and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be delving into the question, expectations from integrity institutions, political parties, and civil society organizations in 2023. We all know 2023 is an election year and things are going to be a little bit different. Last week, we dealt with the expectations from the president and his cabinet plus the legislature. Today, we're going to delve into integrity institutions, political parties, and civil society organizations. With me to discuss this, I have my co-host, a familiar voice on radio in Liberia, Mr. Raymond Oliver Hager. Mr. Hager, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be in your company and the company of the renowned panelists.
By far, this is the best panelist on internet television anywhere in the country. And so thank you. And this is your first time on Tough Talking Thursday, also playing host, co-hosting with me here. I want to welcome, and with a bottle of water and my bitter cola is somewhere else. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
I want to welcome the guy who eats, sleep, and drinks statistics. He's a teacher, instructor here in the States. Mr. Kalebo Gonglo is also took part in our electioneering in Liberia. Mr. Gonglo has a wide range of experience when it comes to elections in Liberia. This is election year, and who else can discuss it besides Mr. Kalebo Gonglo? Mr. Gonglo, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Dennis, as always.
Next, I have FOL governance consultant, Mr. Ahmed Salif. Mr. Salif is a governor expert here at Focus on Liberia. Mr. Salif, welcome to the show. Let's discuss what we expect in 2023 from these various groups.
So it was a pleasure, Dennis. Let's do it. Happy to be here.
Great. Last but not the least, sometimes he tells himself, he say, I don't want to be too academic, and then he gets academic again. Mr. Mansfield Duopu, he is FOL Global Affairs Analyst. Mr. Duopu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's my pleasure to be here with you and my fellow colleagues.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Tough Talking Thursday. This is where we talk tough, and there is no time for any form of tabata. As we enter 2023, before we even get into our topic tonight, things are happening. Today, there were two things that happened that I want us to get out of the way even before we start the discussion. One, there was a gathering at the headquarters of the National Patriotic Party, NPP. I think there have been some internal issues that they are trying to settle. And guess who was there? Economist Sam Jackson. I want you to take a listen, and we're going to discuss that.
Then he got lost all along the way, and then he walked towards the light. And guess where that light was? His own home. So I lost myself, but I came back to my home. And I want you all, not like a prodigal son, but like a close colleague, to accept me, because together we have a lot to accomplish in 2023 to strengthen the coalition, and that's the direction of the party, and 2024 and beyond, to make this country the greatest country in West Africa and maybe in Africa, because I wrote a book, Rich Man, Poor Country. We have a lot, and together, collectively, as citizens of this country, we can make it. God bless you. God bless the NPP, Madam Tabata, thank you very much for accepting me, and I'll come and just greet you now. Thank you very much.
All right. And if you think that you have heard everything today just from that speech, you are mistaken. There's more to come. Today, Mr. Nathaniel Fallot McGill returned from Ghana, and he was met on arrival by a huge crowd. After that, Mr. McGill, they went to a few places in Mangibi, and he delivered a heartwarming speech. Take a listen.
I don't know how to praise you. I want to say thank God for you. And I want to thank God for having all of the 2023. And I'm so grateful. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mikey B. Thank you so much. The people of Tabata, thank you so much. The people of Backletown, thank you so much. The people of Cardinal, thank you so much. The people of all the divisions, thank you so much. You are so great. You are so good. Thank you so much. I want to recognize, if I want to recognize even, I will not be able to call everybody name. The chief elder, my friend and my advisor, former Senator William Kine, the chairman of the Coalition for Democratic Change, the chairman of Team McGill, the chairman of Punky Palm Movement, the chairman of all the different, the chairperson of all the different political parties. We are building a coalition for Mikey B. Mikey B, it's time for all to be united. It's time to make Mikey B great. It's time to bring development to Mikey B. Gone are the days that single individual will believe that they own Mikey B country. The country belongs to all of you. Any one of you can be somebody in Mikey B country. And the days are coming when the sons and daughters of Mikey B will be great people in this country.
All right. You heard two speakers. Let me start with Mr. Gonglo. We're talking about 2023 as we go into 2023. What do we expect? What you saw, and all of us know the story pertaining to Mr. McGill, and also you follow Mr. Jackson very well. Let me get your take on those two deliveries.
Well, I'm not surprised by what I heard and what I'm seeing here. We're in 2023, and this is an exciting time in Liberia, actually. And I would say that I'm actually excited to be part of the discourse for 2023. But Sam Jackson doesn't, the statement by Sam Jackson that he's returning home, I don't read more than that. If you look at United Party, you see that a progressive icon, commonly we say, is a member of the United Party. And there where he is now, he called that his home. St. Jackson called NPP his home. And it is no secret. Those who work at the level of ministers, internal government, you are up to you must have been an NPP member to get to that level. So definitely Sam Jackson was NPP member. In fact, he was one of the last ministers internal government that participated in the different negotiations. So he was minister, I think, of planning and economic affairs, right?
Yeah.
So definitely he's returning home. I give it to him. So I don't think it's kind of unique to him. It's just the culture in him that we all have seen in the among different political actors in Liberia. So I don't read more into that. What Magid is doing, I'm not surprised because the governor of Liberia under President Weah has no definite position on the Manesky sanction. It has no definite position. So any of these folks, they will claim to the Constitution that it is their constitutional right to contest. It is their constitutional right to participate in the affairs of Liberia. So until President Weah government has a definite position, we're going to see events like that. We're going to see a statement like that. And let's see what happens in the next 6 months. That's what I would say.
Mr. Dropu?
Thank you very much. It was a sight to behold, right? I'm looking forward to returning soon to get such a rousing welcome like McGill and such a welcome back to maybe a political party I once belonged to, like Mr. Jackson. But suffice to say, political parties are the highest form of political association, especially in a democracy. People have the right to associate with, political parties, any political party of their choosing. So I don't begrudge Mr. Jackson for the position he took, coming home, and making amends to his party. Mr. Jackson is somebody who, he's polarizing. He's very thorny. A lot of people who like him for what he stands for. A lot of people who bemoan him for what he stands for or what he doesn't stand for. So I don't begrudge him for that. I think as a student of political science and government, I'm one who subscribed to the whole notion of people, forming institutions for the betterment of society. So if Mr. Jackson is going back to the NPP, making amends for his sins, he's saying that he's not a prodigal son. He should be seen as a brother who went away and just returned. So that's a good thing. We'll see all these things happening as we, go as the country moves towards elections. They shouldn't surprise us, as keen watchers of these, maneuverings. We'll see many more. For Mr. McGill, I think I learned he just returned from Ghana, and you saw the crowd. He has been inching his way back to the mainstream of the happenings. Coming back as a former inner cycle conveyor belt of the weird government. He's found himself outside of that inner cycle. He's trying to come back, and that's all about politics. You fall and get up and wipe yourself and get back in the game. So I see that he's gaining traction with the people of Magibi. I don't know how far he's going to go with that. Calabo alluded to the Magistine sanction and all that. Liberia is a sovereign state. You can't use international, regimes to stop any individual who meets the constitutional requirement for attaining political office. You can use that. He's not been, charged with a crime in Liberia. He's not been adjudged by a court of competent jurisdiction about crimes that he's alleged to have committed. So, until somebody, come up with a public, maybe a lawsuit, in the interest of the public, I don't know if they will have any standing, because in court you must have standing, and bring a suit. So we'll look at all those things that are happening and see how we can analyze it for our people. So that's what we need to do. As I will just leave it. Maybe Ahmed and or Mr. Haggard may have something else to say about that. But that's my stance on the two videos we just watched.
Mr. Salif, it's 2023.
Indeed, it's 2023, and we expect a lot of steams, a lot of heat, a lot of energy, political machinations, political alliances, mergers, all kinds of political campaigning and campaign politics. Look, with respect to Mr. McGill, if there's any positive thing that I'm excited about, is the fact that I'm an advocate of diversity of all kinds in Liberia. I think Liberia needs to open up this whole notion that McGill's from Bapulu, my own county, and what is he doing in Magibi? What is he doing in Bong? I think any citizen, as long as they meet the residency requirement under the law of that county or of the country, I think that if the people embrace such an individual, they should be free to run anywhere. So on the first count, that's my take. The second aspect is, look, yes, indeed, Liberia is a sovereign state, right? And the Liberian government hasn't taken any action regarding the Treasury Department sanctions on the 4 officials. Is it 3 officials or 3 of them, right? So Yeah, you have nothing on Mr. McGill. However, if the citizens of Margibi County uh, chose to elect an individual who is sanctioned by the United States, it's their own call. Because to be honest with you, it's a difficult political place to be, right? I think he should have taken care of the legal problems to try to clear his name or to try to push America as big as America is in a corner in such a way that it will still produce the evidence. If I'm innocent under American law, due process, I should be presumed innocent until you've proven something against me. You haven't proved anything against me, and so why are you essentially defaming or impugning my character and such? That's the route, if I were advising somebody like that, would have gone. But he didn't choose that. He chose to go the political route in his country and try to get elected so that he could use that as a platform perhaps to try to navigate his way out of this sanction situation. But it will be difficult for any elected official who's under American sanction. You can travel to the United States. You can conduct business internationally. To be very honest with you, no serious country will welcome Mr. McGill, not because of anything against him personally, but because of that American sanction. No serious institution. And as far as governance is concerned, if you want to elect somebody who can advocate for you, not only in the legislature, not only nationally, but also international, who can travel, bring attention to the issues in our constituency. Yes, indeed, he's coming back. And a little bit at Mr. Duopo, I don't know if Mr. McGill is completely outside of the good graces of the CDC government, or he's not a conveyor belt anymore. He might be out of public limelight, but I can't bet that he's not a mover or shaker internally or quietly. I'll leave it at that. In terms of Mr. Jackson, I see a couple of things. Yes, he was in the Taylor government. He's coming back. He's asking to be welcomed back. But you have to recall that there's been some kind of quiet schism, if there is quiet schism, in the CDC marriage with NPP, right? So you have an individual who publicly has been speaking, advocating, supporting the CDC government, and now he's coming to say, by the way, this is my connection to this government. Let's say he wins good graces publicly with the CDC, there are disgruntled NPP officials who may not like that, may not like the attention he will get, may not like his controversial stances and things like that, and they could further polarize that party.
Thank you. Mr. Hoga, if you have anything, question, comment?
Dennis, for me, the only comments I have to make regarding the videos we saw, I'm wondering, I heard Mr. Duopu and Dr. Salif refer to the Magnitsky sanctions. And I know for sure, reading through the lines, that the American government that instituted the sanctions have warned, have cautioned that those who are affected by the Magnitsky sanctions, if you continue to do business with them, it might have repercussions. So, and we know that the Americans are our biggest donor, biggest supporter. So these people will help to fund our elections. And if you have somebody who is affected by the Magnitsky sanctions being endorsed or being put on the ballot, I don't know what will happen. That's my concern. As regards Mr. Jackson, you see, I think I'm the Dr. Selly will admit.
I'm still working on that doctorate piece.
I'm apolitical.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm apolitical. You see, in our country, Liberia, we have a problem with our politicians. I especially have a problem with the politicians. I think our politicians are the most wicked. I don't know what kind of adjective to describe them with. They don't care for our people. They vacillate. When election comes around, look at for instance, Mr. McGill, like Sally was saying, there is no law that forbids you from, say, you coming from Bapolu County and you can go and run in Margibi. Edwin Snow did the same thing. He was in Montserrado County, District 6, and he decided to go into Bumley County and run as senator, and he won. Agree. But what makes Mr. McGill not being liked by his own kinsmen in Bapolu County, where he comes from, where he's born from, why he can't run in Bapolu, and he decides to go to Margibi?
Yeah, but
Now, the Liberian population, the electorates, are very gullible, very, very gullible. That's for me. If I tell you, as long as I lived in Liberia, I hardly voted. Not that I didn't want to exercise my franchise, but I mean, what's the use? Look at the amount of the throng of people that went to that airport to welcome Mr. McGill. I mean, are we thinking like the way we should? Are we thinking that we should elect people who will be credible, who will be honorable? I mean, I have a problem with that. It's just my say.
Thank you. Mr. Duopo, I see something on the tip of your tongue.
yes, let me just piggyback on what Mr. Hogan just said about McGill. And I mean, the thing is, nothing precludes Mr. McGill from contesting, the senatorial seat in Margibi. There's nothing in the Constitution that precludes him,
No.
And I go back to our own, political socialization as a country. We've not reached that epoch where you can delineate between policy, in terms of the governance architecture. You have an electorate that, believes in certain people, they go for it. We've not reached that part. I think Mr. Hogarth is being more aspirational. I think maybe he's saddened by the reality, but that's the reality we have to work with as a country. Until we fix that, until we reach that epoch in our political socialization, that is what you're going to have. You've seen the Edwin Snow leaving Montserrado, going to Bomi and becoming senator. So there's precedent for that. You don't have to be born in a particular country.
So what do you mean? Do we throw our hands up in the air and give up?
In the past, even in the past, there were people in the Truitt party who were sent to other people who did not belong to particular counties, who were sent to those to counties that they didn't belong to, and they became senators and what have you, representatives. So there's a historical precedent, in what is obtaining right now. So we shouldn't begrudge him for what he's.
But then your point. So what is your point? Your point is we should give up on that, or what do we do then?
I mean, the thing is, let us look at the reality. That's the stark reality we are faced with. Let us not be too, theoretical.
But corruption is also a reality. Do we give up
reality is
corruption?
He lives. I mean, aside from the whole corruption allegation.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying corruption is a reality, because your argument is this is reality, so we should accept it.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you do with reality? You don't obscure reality.
That's what I'm saying. Corruption is a reality. What do we do?
Corruption is a reality. That's why you try to fix it.
Exactly.
So reality is.
So how do we fix this running here there issue that Mr. Hogan raised?
You can say it's running here there because he lives in Margibi, although he hails from Bapolu. He lives in Margibi. He meets the residency clause in the Constitution, so he has a right to. What about people who hail from other counties who run in Montserrado? Sir Joseph hails from Lofa, but he's a senator of Montserrado. So, we can't use one prescription for, certain people and want to use another prescription for other people.
Montserrado
let attack these things. Let's look at these things from a very objective standpoint. That was just what I'm trying to say in this regard.
Okay, Dennis, excuse Mansfield. What about the Magnitsky sanctions?
Yeah, but
aren't we afraid that maybe our biggest donor, those who support our elections, aren't we afraid that they might not support us if we have people who are affected by the sanctions on the ballots?
With all due respect, I don't think Mange is the only person who has faced U.S. sanctions. Senator Prince Johnson has been on our sanction list forever. He has been
was
senator
already in office
for more than, going to maybe 18 years.
No,
there are other people who
no. Prince
I
Johnson
see it.
he was already a senator.
That if I can have a word, there's been no precedents that somebody has been sanctioned by the U.S. government and the president has run for office and the U.S. government has sponsored or supported that election. Look, the enforcement.
So just a point. Are you
real.
saying that Prince Johnson is not on any
Prince
U.S. sanction?
No, he got really sanctioned, I think, in a couple of years ago when he was senator already.
Let me care about that now, so we can, make sure
Prince
that
Johnson was on a UN travel list, ban list forever, and so he has been. One could say for lack of, I guess, better expression, he has self-caution not to travel to the U.S. or internationally far afield. Because of that UN situation. But the US sanction was just 2 years ago when Senator Johnson was already senator. What Mr. Hogger has raised, it was very clear in that sanction stipulation that the individuals, organizations, entities could suffer what they call enforcement action, which means you're not to do business with this individual or any individual who's been sanctioned by the Magnitsky sanction, right? If you do business, then you, by extension, you suffer certain consequences because there are consequences for those who do business. So the citizens of Margibi could experience enforcement action. Yes, Margibi is one of the counties. The USAID works in 12 or 13 counties in Liberia. Gibi is one of them. They could essentially cut off U.S. taxpayers' money and say that the senator is sanctioned by Treasury Department under Magnitsky, and so we will pull out of Margibi. That's a real possibility. And the immediate possibility is that no U.S. funds will go towards the election commission's work.
Yeah, I think the point I made earlier on this issue, like President Weah needs to have, the government needs to have a definite position, because I think it's a foreign policy issue right here. I don't have much knowledge on the history of how Magnitsky sanctions have been enforced in other countries by the State Department. I don't have much history on that. But on top of my head, I'm just thinking, it's a wild thinking, that, for example, the United States government, like I'm not saying, they could start to withhold certain aid from the country. They could even start to maybe make it difficult for some government ministry to maybe have access to grants, or even the very legislature that the USAID grant help to even put in the speaker systems and even provide training opportunities for them to travel, and what they could cut all of those off, very quietly for those reasons. But for me, I respect my gay constitutional right. I respect Senator Johnson's constitutional right. They're not found guilty under the Liberian Constitution, right? All this boils down to where the Weah administration position will be. If the Weah administration position is these our citizens have not violated any laws, fine. I will say hallelujah. They will go wrong. They will do everything, that they will enjoy all the rights and privileges on our constitution, which I believe they should, okay? But I'm not the president of Liberia. The president of Liberia, you have a government. You want what your government to achieve. You have your programs. You want your programs to be supported. We are talking what we're talking because Liberia has been mismanaged for centuries. If a rich country like Liberia, if we're properly managed, we will not even care about sanctions. We will not even care about aid. But we've been, grossly mismanaged for centuries. So
thank you.
This is where we get nervous when some countries say, hey, we're not going to do this. Again, we put ourselves in a situation that it's not going to help us. Now, even Nigeria can say something to Liberia, we'll get nervous. We have wealth just like any other country, but we mismanage our wealth. Even how we give our contract concessions is just grossly mismanaged. And on the issue of St. Jackson, one of the things that caught my attention when St. Jackson spoke was he said He's coming home. He believes that working with them, they can make Liberia one of probably the greatest country in Africa. For me, it's kind of laughable. This guy was with Charles Taylor. They did everything that would make Liberia the least in the world. Now he's coming by in a coalition or in a party that is not even a ruling party. He's talking about making Liberia the greatest country in Africa. I mean, it's laughable. It shows how unserious his statement is, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday. So you're going to hear some tough words tonight. Our topic today, as we go into this election year, that is 2023, what do we expect from our integrity institutions? And I mean the NEC, the LACC, GAC, and PPCC. What do we expect from political parties and civil society organization as an institution? Sorry about that. Civil society organization or CSOs. For these political parties, do we expect some mergers, collaborations, people crossing party lines like we saw with Mr. Sam Jackson? Do we expect more rallies or protests and all these things? Or would there be some pay to play when it comes to these institutions? Would they be more robust? What do we expect? At this time, let me start with Mr. Sirleaf on what do we expect? And let's start with the integrity institutions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Before I start, let me just correct something. So the sanctions that were placed on the Liberian officials, former officials, I think they were the OFAC sanction, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, Treasury Department. Magnitsky is, if I'm recalling it right, it's more the human rights. Global Magnitsky is human rights violation and that kind of thing. So this is a Treasury Department OFAC sanction. In terms of what we expect from these integrity institutions, one will hope that they'll continue to function, they'll continue to do their work, whether they're in a lame duck situation or not, it's an election year or not. But of course, like last week, we said, right, doing it an election year in an African context, historically in Liberia, as we know it, government it becomes somewhat moribund, right? The government officials follow the party, the principal. They follow the president around, and they beck and call because everybody's juggling for job, hoping to see where they will end up. Should they be successful in a subsequent government? And so we expect some of that low energy, low performing, already low performing to be much to be desired. What I'm hoping will not happen is that no integrity institution is used as sort of a witch hunt or against political opponents, political enemies, no allegations, trumped up allegations of sort or resources data previously labeled allegations of corruption or cases that have been resting and all of a sudden now are alive again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of those, but if you take the LACC, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, I see no reason why they shouldn't be working even though election is going on, because these institutions are really state institutions. State institutions. They should be there for Liberia. The Liberian government is not a political party. It's not a political party institution. It's the government of the people, by the people, and for the people of the Republic of Liberia. And therefore, these institutions should be working for the Liberian people. That's what I would expect. But I won't be surprised that if any of these institutions is used as some kind of political tool to, stamp down some kind of opposition or political opponents' energy or so on. That's the LSCC. The PPCC is a little bit tricky, right? Because the Public Procurement and Concessions Commission, they're there to basically ensure that procurement happens according to the laws of Liberia, according to procurement laws of Liberia, and that organizations, companies, civil society groups, foreign companies, foreign firms that are bidding on Liberian contracts and contracts in Liberia are legit to do business, and that they have the capacity, they've met all the requirements under the law, and that they will be in the best interest as stipulated in any such contract, right? But a lot of times we've heard allegations that PPCC has been used against people, and they've been used, to benefit government officials who, a lot of whom have private companies, and diverting sort of basically insider trading, diverting contracts to themselves, awarding contracts to themselves, not meeting standards, not being qualified for certain bids and procurement processes. So, and it's not very much in the public. The PPCC is not as conspicuous as the LACC in terms of sort of public attention, right? It's a technical institution. So I won't be surprised if some allegations came about, but then again, there's elections here.
Mr. Gonglo, election here, we heard of the PPCC in the whole neck issue of selecting who's going to be the vendor for the biometric system, right? We also heard in case of the LACC, people are speculating that, hey, the indictment against the NEC boss may come back during the election year based on what she's going to do. So these are all, for that one, it's a speculation. So let me get your take on this integrated institution as we enter the election year. What do you expect that we're going to be seeing from them?
Well, the way I see it is such that the way the governance process in Liberia is our budget, everything ties to our budget system. Now, these integrated institutions, they are just like any other institution, any ministry, agency of government. They rely on the Ministry of Finance to disburse to them and say, hey, we've collected, the IRA has collected money, because we run a cash-based budget, right? You've collected money, so we're going to issue allotment and all of it. We hear all the stories from different ministries. How some ministries don't even have stationaries. For me, I do have the privilege of heading a project for 3.5 years. We train procurement officers and finance officers. So in almost all the agencies of government, I have graduates who are working there that do have knowledge and sometimes speak to them. So these institutions, they are now slowing down in terms of activities, because for every audit process that GSC undertakes, they have to submit a budget. They have to plan properly for it. They have to select the staff that will go to the ministry or on the field, and they have to calculate number of days and how much it will make beyond how much they will need besides their salary in terms of per diem. Maybe they're going in the country to order some activities, right? And they have to allot. So if they don't have money, if the Ministry of Finance say we are tight on revenue this quarter, they're going to come by on that. So election year, definitely, just like other ministries are going to be affected by slowing down some of their activities, because government will be diverting funds to do politically necessary initiative, by other ministries, so that it can boost the government change. It will affect the integrity institution. It will definitely. Like in the case of PPCC law requires that at the end of the start of the budget year, when the legislatures, once they pass the budget and the president signs the budget into law, ministries begin to submit their procurement plan, their 12-month budget procurement plan to the PPCC. And PPCC has a couple of the budget with them. They have technicians that are well trained. They take all the items that are related to procurement and say, yes, you got this amount of money in your budget for this entity that are procurement related. You must submit plan, what you're going to purchase in advance. And that plan is approved by PPCC. So throughout the budget year, what PPCC is doing is basically managing that plan. So if Ministry A comes and say, we want to buy a car, they will go in the budget plan and say, you did not allot car when we're doing that. Why now? So this is where sometimes the tension can come. They will want to go there and re-edit and say, yeah, we need to want to amend our procurement plan. So sometimes those are gray areas that bring tension, But whatever NEC and PVC were going through, when they were going through all that stuff, on top of my head, I knew that, yes, the guys are looking at the plan, and NEC was trying to deviate from that. It caused wahala sometimes,
So do we expect to see more of that during this election year?
Obviously. Probably because people want to shift from the procurement plan to do something that is politically necessary or something that is expedient. Maybe they don't hope to remain in that ministry beyond October and they want to undertake certain procurement as opposed to the one they put earlier on, like last year when the budget was being formulated, right? PBCs might say, no, we're not approving.
Let's hear from Mr. Blopu.
You call me a real giveaway, my man.
Yeah, I know. I'm trained for this stuff.
Thank you very much. Well, I would just say, I was just thinking about this particular subtopic about these integrity institutions. The Liberian Civil War did not just start in a vacuum. There was some governance, missteps. The whole governance architecture, in my estimation, as a student of politics and history, I think it was couched in a way that left room for what obtained in that 14 year that it was fratricidal. We all know that. Coming back to this weak governance architecture, and I happen to have worked with the Governance Commission for about three and a half years in Liberia. And most of these integrity institutions were the offspring of the Governance Commission. This came about after all the negotiations, to end the war. And the actors, the different actors were talking about how can we reform government itself? What kind of reform we can bring to government? So all the institutions, came to being. And Calabo made a point that these institutions are like, the government ministries and agencies. I don't think so. These institutions were created with the whole notion that people who will lead these institutions will be vetted. There will be some thorough vetting that will even have international support and acquiescence to make sure that people who go in these positions will not be politically, driven, will not be handcuffed by the political establishment. But for what we've seen, in recent past, even in the Ellen government, most of the people who were appointed to this position were, political hacks. There was no vetting process. And I was looking at the PPCC. The lady who runs the PPCC is married to the person who disburses the government's, payments. Don't you see that conflict? Even the appearance of that conflict of interest is problematic. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't happen on a normal oversight if we had a robust legislature that would do the due diligence, the hard work of oversight, and making sure that conflictual situations don't exist in our governance architecture. We don't have that. So you have somebody who awards contract is married to somebody who pays the awardee. That's counterintuitive. So if we look at all these things, and
you think that is by design? Do you think that is by design?
Well, I think so.
We can make such a conjecture, from a reasonable position. You can make that conjecture. That's problematic. I don't care who's there. And we gotta speak facts. As analysts, as citizens. These institutions serve as the mirror of the government. The governance commission we talked last week about having a dashboard. When we were there, we were trying to create a dashboard for government to make sure all these governance challenges, the pitfalls, were documented. And you bring it to the people who, are in the political leadership and say, this is where we're falling short. This is our goal. This is, that's what they do in private sector, in the private sector, investment agency and financial agency. They have a dashboard to track these things. These things need to be tracked. We don't have that. So, I don't know what's going on with the whistleblower law. People can come forward to say something is happening in this agency that you can not be, restrained from doing that. You cannot lose your job because you blow a whistle about some, bad governance practice. So there's a lot to be desired. Really, there's a lot to be desired. I hope 2023 really changes that. We can all work towards making sure we highlight these things. We bring these things to public attention. When last we saw a report from these integrity institutions.
So, Mr. Duopu, will 2023 make them worse or better?
Well, the Liberian people, that's why I talked initially about the political socialization. Until we reach that epoch, there's a lot to be desired. The whole commitment.
But then, if I can just make.
Let Mr. Hoga come in before you, because he got questions, he got comments, he got analysis.
Oh no, I just wanted to make a quick correction.
Go ahead,
yeah, and I just want to make a quick correction on Messi. I'm aware that these integrity institutions were created and there were guidelines as to how you fill these. I'm glad you admitted that the political class, the political leadership did not follow, as planned. But the point I was making specifically is how these integrity institutions are funded. They are funded just like how the other ministries are funded. And because the Ministry of Finance control the purse for all the government structure is part of the problem. So election year, because specifically we're looking at 2023, how they may be affected. I'm saying, hey, they will just be affected like other ministry, because the Ministry of Finance will say, hey, because we're running cash-based budget, will say we don't have much so far. We're disbursing this much to you, and that's it.
So this year we don't need you, LACC. We can give you fasting. Go ahead, Mr. Hook.
So listening to the three of you, the panelists there, so especially Mr. Duopu, do you have confidence, listening to what you just stated, do you have the confidence that this election year, 2023, these integrity institutions, the PPCC, the GAC, the NEC, do you have the confidence that they can, engineer through a credible election for the Liberian people? Do you think so? All of you, Kellebu, Sirleaf, Mansfield, what's your opinion about that? Do you think with these integrity institutions, listening to the three of you, do you think that we can have free, fair, credible, and transparent elections with the kind of faults you think these institutions have?
Well, if I may just attempt first on this.
Okay.
Based on my experience in election, at least in different parts of the world, in East Timor, Kenya, and Liberia, I would say outrightly there is nothing a free, fair, transparent election. There's nothing like that.
At least in the world.
Yeah, I would say that. I will conclude on that. But there can be, serious effort. Yeah, we can make serious effort to give everybody a fair chance in terms of the legal process to do it. Because on top of my head, when you're talking about fairness, we have to look at so many parameters to see which one, whether these parameters are balanced or they are not. Okay, but the electoral management body must be same as being fair. In Liberia, the electoral management body is not. Clearly, is not. The electoral management body is appointed by a government that usually has interest in election. Okay, so they hire the electoral staff to go on the field. They give them instruction, they give them logistics, they give them everything. So I mean, political parties, opposition, or participating in elections have to be strong. They have to work overtime to ensure that the vote that the people cast for them, these votes are protected. That's why you usually have election monitors, even the laws on election monitor, political party, observers. It's really not strong because I participated in it. As to some extent, they have to be some distant, or they don't have much.
So what is your confidence level when it comes to the elections, looking at those issues that you are expressing?
What I think I'm confident about is there is a stronger will, a stronger determination on the part of those who are participating to ensure that there is a free process. That one I'm confident about. But as opposed to the government determination to all the electoral ballot management, the electoral management body determination to have a free, transparent, and fair process, I don't have that confidence. I don't have that confidence in them. But I do have the confidence in participating in the election, particularly the opposition, that they will fight, that they are not cheated.
Mr. Dwopu, same question.
Well, I think we've had maybe 3 elections now since the elections that brought Taylor into power, and since Taylor's political demise. We've had 2 elections that brought Ellen into power, and an election that brought Mr. Weir to power. So there's some level of confidence, and like somebody rightly stated, there's no absolute free and fair election. There will always be doubt in the minds of maybe the losers or people, But we as a democracy need to try to make sure that we have a high degree of transparency, to make sure that those who are given the tax to conduct the elections have the highest integrity because we are all human beings. They are human beings. They have their own frailties. They have their own faults. But that's why we entrust them, because they are providing public service for the benefit of our country. To sustain a democracy, it takes the collectivity, even the opposition political parties, civil society organizations, interest group, be it economic interest group or real interest group. We are all in a political collectivity. And I know the government appoints, the people who head elections, and they provide the logistics and all that. Well, hey, I think we all have a stake. People who are participating, and even those who are electing those people, they have a stake to make sure that the elections are free, fair, and transparent.
Right.
So you can't just leave this with a small, segment of the population. You can leave this with maybe the government or the elections commission. The political parties have a stake to play. They have to make sure they have representation. They have to make sure they make their own claims. If there's any electoral...
So how do you respond to Hogarth's question?
There are legal system in place, legal remedies for that. So I think my level of confidence is where we've stopped since the last elections. We didn't have no political violence.
And what make you think so? Have things improved since that time? We were talking about the LACC, the GACC, the GAC, the NEC. Have things improved for which you think things your confidence level is at that point? Or have things deteriorated when it comes to those integrity institutions?
In my mind, there's room for improvement in every system.
Mm-hmm.
There's always room for improvement. We always want the best. Right. We can still make sure that these institutions work for the betterment of the people. So the National Elections Commission, there are people who have worked there over years. There's some people who I know there who are just not political appointees, who are, civil servants who work those elections, magistrates and what have you. They've worked there for, 20 years, 15 years. So They are trained. Some of them have international exposure.
Let me go to
Elections
Ahmed, because
abroad.
you are not answering Oliver's question. Go ahead, Ahmed.
So, Oliver and Mr. Hogger, in terms of confidence, I think we're mixing, oranges, potatoes, and apples and everything together in one bag, right? When you're talking about free, fair, transparent election, that's a whole sort of separate system that has metrics, that has sort of a parameters, established way of measuring that. You can talk about credible election. It's not the same as free, fair, transparent election. In Western countries, America, they're still fighting about 2020, right? Elections can have squibbles, can have
You guys are all academicians. These are nuances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But election.
We know what we mean when we say free, fair, and transparent election.
Free, fair, transparent. So, for example, I'll just name a few of the variables that in terms of international standard, the UN and all the bodies, right? So, IFES and all of that are considered. You have to have an electoral management body, right? EMB. We have an EMB, that's the National Elections Commission. There's a whole system. You can look at that EMB alone, say electoral officials, logistics, software, technology, funding, all of those are within the confines of the EMB. Are they perfect? Do they have adequate funding? Are the staff trained? Are they free of political? Are they apolitical and all of that? You can say, oh, this is not fair in that respect. And then you have to have a legal framework. So in Liberia, we have the new electoral law that makes sure it specifically spells out how elections ought to be conducted according to the Constitution. How you violate this law when you do this, when you don't do this. All of that, we have that legal framework. And then participation in the media, civil society, political parties. There are all kinds of variables that go into what's considered free, fair, and transparent election. It may not be perfect, but there's a system. And the international community, diplomatic missions, development agencies, NGOs, and so on, public international organizations like the UN bodies, and all of them are watching these metrics and variables that I'm talking about here. It will not be perfect, but it will make sure these are conditions for funding, conditions for participation, and all kinds of other things that are outside the Liberian government. Of course, political parties, in order to participate, operate within the legal framework, but also make sure that you have representation, your interests are represented on election day, because there are different things we're talking about. Election day, how the polls are conducted, who conducts the poll, and what's that mechanism? How do you deliver ballots? All of that. Who are the witnesses? Who are there to observe? International, political party representatives, civil society, religious organizations, all of these, they're all there. So I wouldn't be comfortable to blanketly say there's never anywhere in the world, in our context, free, fair, transparent election. Yeah, the elections will have trouble, they'll have problems. Kenya, everywhere, United States, right? But at least, is it credible? Does it meet some of these metrics that we're talking about here?
Right.
If we pass some of those and somebody emerges as winner, we can say it was credible. And therefore, if they didn't stop media, they didn't stop political party participation and so on, then it was free in that respect. Okay.
So what's your answer to Mr. Hogan?
My confidence level is not at the highest degree because we don't have the infrastructure. We're a very weak and fragile country. Even the internationals that are coming to help to support us have their limitations in terms of the context in which they're operating. But I have confidence to the extent that we can have a peaceful, credible election. Whoever emerges, that such an individual or individuals will be the credible elected representatives of the people.
Now, that is just the point. Let me come back into Mr. Dwupu and the panelists. In Liberia, there is this school of thought that those who are appointed to head our election commission are all done so politically. The president appoints all of those members of the board of commissioners. What do you think about it individually? do you think the president should be appointing our election commission officials? Because I listened to Caleb earlier. He was saying that he didn't think the election would be fair because the people are they are political appointees. So should we take that power away from the president, you think, for the election commission officials to be appointed, perhaps say by maybe put in office by the legislature and not the president appointing, because they will have political allegiance to the president?
Even the legislature and legislators are political animals who are compromised, who have vested interests.
No, but
Look,
they are elected by
Mr.
the
Hawker, the assumption is that the president operates within the framework of the law. There's no country where let's say the head of the commissioners on the board, because the election commission, as other commissions, these are boards, right? They have members, they have commissioners, and these commissioners among themselves other commissions. You can actually elect who becomes your leader. I don't know. I can't. Don't hold me on this. Whether the president actually appoints the chair of the commission of NEC, of the National Elections Commission. If that's the case, then so they're supposed to be apolitical and not be like overt political members of political parties. Everybody knows this is a sedition. This is the president, somebody they send now, they're the head of the election commission. Yeah, of course, if that happens, and we all know this is where citizens should speak out, civil society and everybody in that respect. Like Mr. Dupo was pointing out, you can't be the accountant general controller of the country, and then your wife is the head of the PPCC, who signs off on these vendors and these contracts and so on. Then there's no scrutiny there, because that's insider trading essentially, right? This is a difficult question you are asking. Right.
All right, Mr. Calabo, respond quickly.
I think I just wanted to make one clarification here quickly. When I spoke and I said my confidence level is very low with the electoral management ballot, but my confidence is very high with the opposition or the participant in the election, that they're going to fight to ensure that the process, their votes are protected. I mean, I didn't mean that, once there has not been any conflict before or in the last maybe 10 to 15 years, arising from election, it means everything has been rosy, everything has been credible. No, that is because people can choose not to pursue any radical action as a result of their grievances come out of the electoral process for various reasons. It could be like, okay, we're dealing with a volatile population, so we don't want to do anything that others could take advantage of. So it doesn't mean there was not genuine grievances or there was not genuine a reason to protest. Like in the local election, Unity Party came down with a laundry list of grievances that they thought were legitimate, but they opt not to pursue it to satisfy local grievances or potential fallout in Lofa. They said, okay, we're going to do this because we don't want Lofa to fall apart. So it didn't mean that those issues raised at the press conference were not general violation of the election law, or they didn't have evidences to those.
Thank you, Mr. Dupo. Let's conclude on that
point. And also, to make a point, Ahmed, there has been debate. If you talk to some of the political parties, they will tell you there has been debate on how members of the election commission should be constituted. During President Sedi time, there were proposals by political parties. In fact, the late Charles Bronski was one of the proponent of that debate, that the president has all this power. We know it's a constitutional power, but there are precedences where there's precedent where either during the interim time or even during peacetime, the president has asked lawyers or the bar to nominate judges, to vet judges before the president makes appointment. right? Because it's a profession. You know your colleagues, you know who you believe is that. It doesn't mean you're taking the president's power away, but you could nominate, you could recommend 3 or 4 names to the president that these lawyers will believe are credible enough to be fair, irrespective of which cases before them. They want
thank you, Mr. Gonglo.
to be with the Elections Commission. Yeah.
Mr. Dwopu, let's conclude on this so we can go to political parties.
Well, I think the Constitution still provides that the president, appoints the Elections Commission with the advice and consent of the legislature. So there's also, the check and balance in our constitutional framework. And I'm sure, like Calebo alluded to, there have been many times where the president has asked civil society organizations and other organizations to put forward names that, he or she could choose from. I think that has been happening, from my understanding. So, that's the constitutional framework. Until we repeal that, until we amend our constitution, that is the stark reality we are faced with. We just hope that those who are entrusted with such a national duty will be of the highest integrity to make sure that the elections are credible, free, fair, and transparent. And I will go back to the saying that political parties, those who are participants, also have a duty to make sure the process is fair. Because there are many times people will not maybe put forward, viable candidates, and when they lose elections, they cry that the process was not transparent. So it's a gamesmanship that politicians play, and we have the court system, we have institutions for redress. The Elections Commission itself has its own judicial system within the commission itself to address these electoral claims and counterclaims. So the system is there. We can be proud that we have a system internally to deal with these elections claims. I'm sure we are aware that, there have been a lot of adjudications in the Elections Commission. I mean, they have gone to the Supreme Court. There have been, court verdicts on electoral claims and counterclaims. So we can be proud of our system, and we just hope that we can perfect it. That's something that we can work on as a society.
Dennis, just a moment. Sorry, Mr. Dwopu, but basically my question was: do you think that power should be taken away from the executive?
It's not what I think. It's these are constitutional
what are your thoughts
and legal matters. It's within the purview of the people who will make those maybe a plebiscite or a constitutional referendum or whatever you want to call it. So what we have now is that the president appoints the Elections Commission. So we can't ask for anything fairer or more transparent than that. I don't know if we'll bring people from space or what will bring robots to conduct the elections. So how can we elect election, managers? How can we if even the legislators were doing that, like Ahmed, said initially, they are also, biased. They have their own political, orientation and preferences. It might not meet that litmus test that we all want. But what we have now is, I think, is working for our country. So we just want to make sure that people who are entrusted with such a national duty to really,
You say what we have is working?
What's that?
You say what we have is working?
What we have now has worked. We've had 3 elections. We've not had any political violence since those elections. I think it's not perfect though, but it has worked. So we just need to make sure that all the institutions, all the actors, the players, they have a stake, in this.
Thank you, Mr. Dwopu.
No, but Dennis, I think mentioned this last statement, I don't agree with it. The absence of violence does not mean that everything has been transparent or has been has followed the law. It doesn't mean so. It doesn't mean people don't have.
What's your measurement?
You listen to participant some like the United Party case, 2020 election. They held a press conference where they listed 17 violations, okay, but they opted not to pursue, and they said there were local.
They opted not to pursue.
That it, yeah. So to say once there is no violence, then everything is okay. I mean,
we saw the Vani Samukai, the Brownie Samukai case. But let's move on. Let's move on. Or Mr. Hogai, if you don't have further questions, we can move on to political parties.
The only thing Mr. Dwopu didn't answer my question directly, but anyway, let's go ahead.
Yeah, but Mr. Hoga, I mean, I'm sorry if I didn't answer directly, but I mean, in my field of work, in my own, academic pursuit, you can't, this is not like, mathematics, these things is all about, how you perceive it, how you theorize it, and I mean, so I'm sorry.
At least you give a personal opinion.
But it's not my personal opinion per se. I mean, I'm basing all these things on law and politics, and
but do you have an opinion?
So it's personal opinion might not really suffice.
But you have one.
Well, my statement kind of is couched in my personal opinion. It might not be like Mr. Dwopu is saying this, but it's based on what I see with the history and the politics that revolve around the question. So
thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Tough Talking Thursday. We are discussing the expectations from integrated institutions, political parties, and civil society organizations. Let's go to political parties, and maybe you can also add the CSOs. Right now, what we're seeing is we saw the CPP, for instance, of the ANC, and even though ANC people or C people hate for you to say this, but it's the ANC plus half of Liberty Party. They will not like me for saying that. And since that, it has now grown beyond that. We heard that the Unity Party was forming its own coalition, and it's still in the works, right? We see the CDC, which is the Coalition for Democratic Change, the coalition was kind of fracturing, NPP and the Tyler Party on one hand have been demanding some stuff like, hey, this was our time to eat, but we have not eaten. So give us appointment. In fact, somebody was saying it is based on that. That's why you saw Mr. Jackson there, because if the CDC will provide jobs to members of the NPP, he may be one of those benefiting. Who knows? So as we go into these elections, 2023, do we expect to see mergers, collaborations, fracturing, people crossing carpet from one party to the other? Do we expect to see more retire suffering or retire eating rallies? Do we expect more pressure groups to mount more pressure? Do we expect rallies, protests? What do we expect as we go into 2023 from political parties, civil society organizations, pressure groups, intergroup, and the likes? Let's start with Mr. Dwopu.
Well, from my own understanding of political parties in Liberia, from what I've studied as a comparativist, most political parties in Liberia are just in name. I mean, they don't have no national standing. They are just, tribal groups, and they don't have that national appeal. Maybe it's just Monrovia based. They don't have offices. They don't have structures in the various counties. You don't really see, because I worked in the 1997 elections, for Madame Salif. And I saw what transpired. I saw all the political jockeying, and those things still happening today. Most times people say, oh, we have this political party and we want to merge with you, we want to form this alliance. It's all about maybe gaining a ministerial position or an ambassadorial position. So I'm not surprised that, we see all these political machinations, all these squabbling, and somebody talked about Mr. Jackson going to the NPP, and maybe hopefully if the thing is divvied up, he might benefit from, the spoils. Well, that's how other people have gained political, relevance in the country. So it's not strange, we see all this. There's part of politics. It might not be palatable to some people. Well, that's the political gamesmanship that politicians play. It's all about power. It's all about the acquisition of relevance, power, wealth, and prestige and all that, all the trappings of government jobs and all that in our country. So I'm not surprised by that, So, and the political parties, they should do better, and because political parties are the highest form of political association in the polity, where society and all that, since the foundation, the foundation of society. Political parties are groupings that aspire for political leadership. So, they shouldn't take those things lightly, and forming alliances, because most of our parties are not really based on ideology. I've spoken about that in previous.
So what do we expect in 2023 from them?
They are just based on, personality cult and all of that, and, somebody who has the financial wherewithal and becoming a political leader overnight and all that. We see that. So, as our political socialization, reaches the approach of understanding the nuances of politics, delineating individuals from political ideas. Right. We've not reached that far yet. I hope 2023 will be the watershed year where, our people will be, really informed, they'll be educated about politics, about electioneering and all that. And political parties have a responsibility to do that for their members, their partisans, because what we have now is all
Mr. Gropo, let's cut to the chase. So, do we expect political parties to disintegrate during this, or they're not existing?
We've seen political parties that that were forming alliances in 2-3 election cycles. Some of them have demised. Some of them have withered away. Some of them they only shell within themselves. They are not parties that have members that you can say, yeah, these are our members, and you can show. I think the election laws need to change. That if you can show that you have, following in maybe 7 or 8 counties at least, you shouldn't even be a political party. You should not. Because it clouds, it just crowds out the political space, and it doesn't give room for real competition. Because somebody will be dragging another party down, somebody will be just, dragging this party down, and you can meet that threshold because somebody has siphoned some votes from you, and it undermines the vibrancy of a democratic society. That's why I think, So
thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Salif, somebody said we expect rights-based election, nothing else. So what do we expect? Somebody say, Mr. Jackson went to hang his clothes where he was expecting the sun to shine. Well, what do we expect from these political parties? And
what we see of political parties, the lack thereof, is a sort of microcosm of what we see of our government institutions. With all due respect to my country, we have organizations, people, personality-based politics, but no institutionalism. So Mr. Dropo was really speaking to institutionalism. So, for example, to be a political party, we see other countries, right? I give you a few examples around Africa, South Africa. Take the ANC, for example, right? Or go to the Orange Movement in Kenya, and or go to NDC in Ghana, or the APC in Sierra Leone, the SLPP. These are parties that are based on ideologies, and they truly believe in that. They train cadets, they train people, they have systems that raise you from when you are an intern to when you become party secretary, to the extent that you're destined to become a candidate for president, because they've taken you from where when you were in secondary school, high school, you've been following. They've been training you. And then they have a set of policy. They believe in government and governing in a certain way so that should they become the party of the day, this is their philosophy. This is their view of government, of governing. And this is how they're going to deliver services to their people based on this political ideology and this political philosophy, right? And so they don't just merge and extricate or remove themselves today from this merger, break promises, and move on the other side because they believe in integrity. They believe in honor, in respect, in training people who become civil servants, who become technocrats, who become analysts, who become ministers of government, serious positions in government because they believe in the state. They believe in the nation state. So when you're talking about political party, institutionalism of political party, as it were, that's what it ought to be. But we do not have that in Liberia. So if you ask me, what do we expect in 2023 of these, mimicries of political parties? Well, I believe people will be sort of weighing the option to see where they believe somebody will win or might win so that they can show themselves and front themselves in order for a job in the future. And there's a reason why that is happening in the country, really, because we don't build anything, we don't grow anything, we don't have industries, we do not have the enabling environment for people to do other things than government, for people to live the lifestyle, the desire that they're capable and competent of, perhaps. And so all they see is go in government or perhaps become a lawyer or a doctor in the country, something there that you can, survive and at least become part of the elitism of the society.
So we expect nothing.
We expect nothing and we have to change that. Like Mr. Popo was saying, this is the reality. This is our reality. We have to confront it. Yes, it's good to confront reality. But when do we become reformed, transformative people? When do we become that? We got to work something. My friend Jimmy Eastman is always saying, well, we first have to transform. We first have to move the people in a certain direction, the country in a certain direction, and then our institutions will follow. Yes, because our institutions mirror us. They mirror the citizenry, right? So if you haven't built your citizenry to a competent, highly educated society that has morals, morality, integrity, and they believe in working for the common good of their fellow citizens. We're not there. Even the leaders, they lie. They just do it for themselves. They want the money. They engage in rent seeking. I don't know how we extricate, how we get out of that, right? So what you will see in 2023, people trying to figure out whether it's Buckeye. If it's Buckeye, we want to go there because we want part of the show. If it's going to be President Weah in the CDC, then we want to be part of it. That's where we hang, and that's where the sun is shining. We'll predict, and that's where we're going to hang our wet clothes.
Mr. Gonglo, nothing epitomizes what Dopu and Salif talk about, besides this one, right? Where people are saying, oh, let's come in Buckeye. Let Buckeye Gonglo bless you. All this kind of thing, right? Nobody is talking about ideology. Nobody is saying this is what the party stands for. In fact, there is no regard for the political party. It's just the individual. These two people should go together. Nobody cares for their ideology, what they believe in, what they believe for the country, what the party believes in. What's the party going to do? If somebody is a head of a political party, they call them political leader or candidate, that person goes on a fishing expedition to find a running mate from anywhere, regardless of what they believe in, who they are. We just do that based on that person is from Bond County and Bond guy vote. Oh, what? There are some foolish thing they always say, the pellet belt. What belt? So tell me, what do we expect to see from these political parties in 2023?
Well, first, I will shift a little bit from, maybe the intent of the question. But first, I will concede also the idea that, or the comment that we don't have institution. We have weak institutions. And institutions do matter in democracy. If you have weak institutions, you expect to have what? You have strong men. And strong men don't build society. They only lead society on the path of chaos. That's all. I mean, history has proven that. But let me, based on my own experience, the way I see, I think it is a structure of our governance structure. I think it's part, or it has a major part to play. I tend to be correct on this, but if you visit all African countries and see, I work in Kenya for a little bit of time, for about 8 months in Kenya as international staff for the Carter Center. So I had the opportunity to work in all the regions of Kenya at the pre-election observation, election observation, and post-election engagement of civil society, organizations and political parties. And what I've observed in Kenya is nothing different from Liberia, because we run a centralized governance system. Everything is in Monrovia, everything is in Nairobi. After election, Carter Center actually did a study in Kenya, and I was part of that study. And the same study was also repeated in Liberia after 2017 election, including the CDC. After election, all their offices in all the countries shut down. All the buildings the police took on were abandoned. The owners of the building came by and occupied it became living quarters. They were living there. Even during the May 10 election, only candidates have their offices, not the political party office. So it tells you that what you have is really strong men, not institutions. And we
keep calling for more strong men.
Yeah. So why is it so? Like Ahmed mentioned, in South Africa, the governance structure is different. In the provinces, people are elected. So these political parties have stronger structure in the provinces, or in our case, we can say the county. So if we have a system in such a way that local officials are elected, and based on party system, then these parties will have offices in the local area, and they will try to insert themselves. But what you have is just Monrovia, because it's a centralized system. Everybody gravitates towards Monrovia. The same way in Kenya, everybody gravitates towards Nairobi, okay, because it's a centralized system. So after election, all the offices are shut down. Okay.
So for 2023, what do we expect?
What is happening? We need maybe to fix the governance structure, or the structure of the state, probably, to see if, like, the governance commission attempted to have the decentralization bill, to have county legislative assembly, to have superintendent elected. That election would have been definitely on political party, on political party system, and then it will require that the local people will have a party office, and you strengthen the political parties at the county level. But we're not there yet. Until we get there, so that either we have to change the system in a way that makes our people to get active and control the system. That's one thing I wanted to say also. But in terms of the CSA role, the civil society organization, they have a critical role. Like in Kenya in 2002, guess what they did? The civil society organization came together under the Episcopal church, or what in Liberia we call maybe the Council of Churches. They came together under the churches and the interfaith group, and they drafted resolutions in opposition on things they want to see beyond Dano Aramoa. And they took it to each political party to sign onto it. And as a basis of civil society, either coming your way or seeing you as an ally, the National Rainbow Coalition, NAC, headed by Dr. Mwaki Baki, he signed onto that. Dano Aramoa didn't sign onto that, because they were demanding radical reform of the system, restructuring the state. So we need similar thing in Liberia. We need active civil society organizations that will come up with petitions or resolution of their interest, things they want to see done beyond 2023 that President Weah is not doing, and not necessarily Weah or previous government has not done, and then take it to political parties. They can even take it to the CDC and say, these are our demands. They can sign. If they sign to that, that could be a starting point of discussion. So beyond the election, whoever emerges, CSO can go and say, hey, you signed to do this. You are not doing that. You said, we structure this in the first 100 days. Whoever emerges must do this. It's after 100 days you haven't taken one action, right? That will be one. All of which civil society organization can be very strong, and also shift the discourse. But I will end on this. The proposal that Mesri made that I must also admit he's not the first. Others have proposed that we should restrict participation in presidential elections. That if someone participated in previous election, maybe he got 1,000 votes in the entire country, no, you should not participate. No, I think that is ludicrous, because if you do that, we have to change the constitution. It's just similar to the discussion we're having about those on sanction lists, whether being corruption is a crime or law, but they are being accused of corruption by foreign state. Can we hold them accountable? They have constitutional rights similar to that. So here, the right to participate and the voter right to choose, that right, that marriage cannot be denied by any legal process. So we have to just open the process. In my mind, over time, it's a marketplace of ideas. So if you have good ideas, the voters will come to you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Hoga, I know you got questions.
Really, Dennis, the political parties in Liberia, like I listened to the panelists talk, political parties in Liberia leave much to be desired. Some of them, you'd be surprised that I run out of the grips of the politicians or the guy who has the largest amount of money. And I'm looking here at the text messages. There's a guy, Sam Wallow. He's even asking you people, why you're not attacking me because I said I chose not to vote. But Sam, let me correct. I voted in 2005 and I voted in 2017 before I left to come to the States. And I gave one of the reasons for my nonchalant move about voting is that, like you're talking about the political parties, we don't have serious-minded and well, structured political parties. We don't. The politicians are all in it for themselves. And like Mr. Dwoku was saying, they come and form these ragtag parties or some movements just to get into the fray so that they can be able to be offered something afterwards. You have a political party that has about 30 members. The chairman, the organizing chairman, and maybe a few members. And when it comes to perhaps to see the runoff, you hear them say, okay, I will join I align with this party. Only so at the end, that organizing chairman or whoever may get some political appointment. So they're not really in it for the people. They're not structured. They ain't got no office. They got no funds, but they say they have a political party. And I've seen that a lot in Liberia. So for right now in Liberia, okay, you have the Congress for Democratic Change, the Unity Party. You're talking about the ANC now with Mr. Cummings. Even that, the Liberty Party. Look, sometimes I don't want to express all because people may take offense with me. But we really need to do a lot in Liberia when it comes to politics, the formation of political parties. And that's what I said from the beginning. Our society, our people are so gullible. Our people don't know what political parties are supposed to be. Okay? How they're supposed to be structured. What do you expect other political parties? When they win elections, that's it. They will go to all the nooks and corners and tell the people, vote for me or join our party and do this. when they get anything, they forget about the people who put them there. So I don't really have faith in political parties, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. And for the 2023 elections, look at the political parties. You were talking about the Liberty Party. I call it the fragmented political party. I mean, Liberty Party. They don't know what they want. They're fighting amongst themselves. They're attacking each other every now and then. And I mean, we just at a loss. The population will be at a loss from these political parties. So I just wish that our people come out, and structure the political parties. Let it not be based on an individual. I heard the other day that the PLP man, Dr. Cassell, I heard that he passed. Peace to his ashes. But observe it. That PLP will go, that will be the end of it. Mark my word. Dr. Castell is gone, peace to his ashes, but that will be the end of the PLP. The next thing you will hear that the PLP aligned with this other party, they're only looking for something to get after elections.
Thank you. If you're just joining us and want to be part of the conversation, 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. Gentlemen, well, thank you so much. Let's go into our Tabata session. Tabata is the one that some people started writing their Tabata already. For me, I have a short video, and if you watch the video, you can even guess my Tabata. So I'll play the video while you also think about your Tabata for the day.
Timothy then took us to a facility where they have turf. And that turf that we went to play, it was not even better than Invisible Park. So we can compare that to what is in Miami. You understand? Some community that we went to, there was not even a paved street. So we can compare that to Miami. So there's no doubt. I say Liberia is like Miami because there are a lot of things we put in place today. Community got road, people training on those roads in communities, and there's no more mud. It's like Miami because I live there, so nobody can question that. You understand? Even in France, it's not everywhere it's developed in France. But what I said, and I mean it, just the other day, we were in Miami after the World Cup. You see what wonderful trade? Is that better than Invisible Park? No. So we achieved something. So when I say Liberia is like Miami, I mean, my critics always say otherwise. But I know because in Miami, almost everywhere it paved in the community. And what happened to us today? Rehab looked like Miami because everywhere paved and people can run on the street today. They can do what they want to do. So that and I will always say that because I live in those two areas, and that's it.
Finally, Mr. President, we are in 2023. And 2023, we all know, is a cashing period where we're going into elections. And 2023.
All right. And if you guess my Tabata, then you are wrong. You can't guess it. My Tabata is his minister standing with him. He tried to get support. The president tried to get his support to agree with him, and he's just standing there like a statue. That to me is my
rehab is Miami, man. What's that Miami?
I don't know what the president want to do with this argument. What he's trying to win it, but it's not Trogon Queens who have agreed with me. Say, yeah, boss man, because the president was looking towards him for support and he didn't give it. And I think that's my Tabata for the day.
And the funny thing is, to be interviewed by your, the guy who carries your
office
bag.
assistant here.
I mean, office assistant interviewing you. It's comical, I mean, but
that's unprofessional.
That's
the office of the president.
Elevating that position, So you play many roles, and you can interview the president, you can carry his bag, you can, so it's a very, sight to behold.
All right. What's your Tabata of the week, Mr. Gonglo?
My Tabata really has to do with Sam Jackson's statement that they're going to make Liberia to be the greatest country in Africa, if not the world. This is a man who worked with Charles Taylor. This is a man who was Minister of Planning and Economic Affairs in a system that there was absolutely no accountability. Taylor was the Minister of Finance, he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he was everything. He was the revenue collector, he was the central bank, everything was in his house. And Sam Jackson did not speak. Now he's returning to a party that he called his home, but that party is not a ruling party. That party technically is seeking to have power. We don't know when they will have it. Yet he's promising to make Liberia the greatest country. For me, that's my Tabata.
Mr. Dwopu?
I think I'll pass to the. I think Calabos stole my line.
Find another one. Let Mr. Salif go, Mr. Hogarth, then we'll come back to you. For our viewers, if you are watching us for the first time, Tabata in or crew, gribble, or crime means nonsense. Complete nonsense. Foolishness. Go ahead, Mr. Salif.
Dennis, I am Western Cluster.
I know. You are from
Western Cluster. I was born in Tottenhamburg. That's where my family was settled. But my roots are in Medina, Bapulu, Bopulu, my ancestral paternal home. And then Swamaka, Bomi. And my mother's from Grand Cape Mount County. So what these guys are playing with this Western Cluster, for me, I don't want to go into the merits of the country and how they're treating our people, all the politics, and everybody else, and all those leaders in cahoot, and they're coming to the people and trying to be transparent to create an appearance. I don't have all the facts, so I don't want to go into that. But one thing stood out for me. The iron ore will be trucked from Bombing Hills on that bad road through Douala to wherever they're carrying it to ship and among our people. And think about, why can't our people be ambitious? If a company can come to you offering you millions of dollars, that company is able to put the infrastructure up. That's a very short rail link. In fact, there's still a track there from LMCD, right? You could reinvigorate, sort of resurrect, fix that, put a couple of carts and put a little rail there. Let it be safe for our people. Because one of those trucks overturns a Douala, hundreds of people would die. Not only that, why can't they be ambitious that, okay, look, this is the opportunity to fix this other piece of infrastructure, to have a concessionaire, started for us, perhaps we'll take it from there. They're like, well, the contract was that they would truck the ore from Bumi, they will fix the road, they will patch up. They didn't even say like regrade the road, like uproot what's there and rehabilitate it so that even the truck that's trucking the iron ore is safe. They just the potholes. They agree and sign a contract that says fix these potholes, between Port Rail and Bumi, and you're okay to hold it. To me, it's beyond Tabata. When I heard that, I said, but what is wrong with our people? So that is, I couldn't have another Tabata today, having listened to Senator Edwin Snow and Maurice Tuma and all those former speaker, Tyler, all those people who went and said, call a town hall meeting, was speaking to our people. It just really saddened me to see that at every opportunity, our leaders fail us.
Thank you. Mr. Dwopu, they say, Sam Wallace said there's no free passes, so you're not going to give you any free pass. Let me go to Mr. Hogarth for his Tabata of the week while we wait. And I'll give one Tabata before you come, Mr. Dwopu. No free pass. Go ahead, Mr. Hoga. And then
All
now
right,
BBC.
let me try to get used to Tabata.
Yeah.
Today I was listening to a program, and I heard one of the panelists say that I think you may know that you've heard that the former Vice President Joseph Boakai wasn't well. He was at the hospital, I think, ELWA. And then listening to one show today, I heard one of the panelists say that the President George Weah, had called him to say that the government offered former Vice President Boakai to fly him out of the country for medical treatment. And according to this guy, he said the president told him that the vice president and the Unity Party people agreed, but they didn't want it to be made public. And then the host asked him, the president called you? He said yes. He had his phone. He said the president called me, the minister of finance called me. And that became a heated issue. And I was like wondering, but even if the president called you and they said they didn't want to make it public, but you've already made it public. So, and then the Tabata was, why would the president be calling this individual? Some people are calling him a surrogate of the president. Call you to make that disclosure to the public? What happened to the Minister of Information or the press secretary to the president? So I thought it was totally hilarious and obnoxious.
Thank you.
So that's my Tabata.
Jimmy Eastman said, my Tabata is, why is NPP having standard bearer election when they are in an incumbent coalition and are not contesting for president? Their greed and lust for power would destroy the party. And Sam Waller has a long Tabata here. It says, the Tabata of the week was the former MD Senator John Balu. And if it's Balu, why is he spelling his name ball out? Senator John Balu holding a press conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
To do Cummings' bidding by pretty much demanding that VP Boakai take Cummings as his vice president, while at the same time relegating Senator Nkanga, who is actively seeking a VP slot, to the role of pro tem of the Senate, and then also demanded that Cummings be assured of the next standard bearership of the opposition coalition, and entitlement and audacity abounds. My Tabata here is in Lofa County, there's one tapper playing for Lofa County. First of all, in the county meet, you can play for one county 1 year, and the other time you play for another county, and that is allowed. That's to me.
Yeah, you hire. They hire the people.
Right.
Your man from Nimba, your pa from where? Sino.
No, you don't have to come from there. You can
right.
play.
No, that I agree, and that's why the criticism against Tapper playing. I thought the beauty of the county me was to hear the Tapper name in Lofa, and then there's another crew speaking name in Bong. I thought that was beautiful, but then I heard people from
there are Tappers from Tabata.
Yeah, no, but this Tapper from who's playing for Lofa is from
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Let me finish my Tabata. You don't have Tabata. So there are people from Sino who criticize Tapper for playing for Lofa because he should be playing for Sino. I think that's complete Tabata.
Yeah.
Mr.
But Dennis, to your point, Anthony Tokpa, the guy who knocked out Nimba, I think 1990, what was it? Or Canton Meat, he's from Sanukole, but you are playing for Lofa. He's called a go on Nimba. He was a top struggle for Lofa.
And that's beautiful. I love that. And nobody should. These are clubs. I should play for anyone. Even although my dream job is to be Sino superintendent, but if they don't want me, I can be superintendent for Bome or Bapolo. I don't mind. Mr. Duopo, what's your Tabata of the week?
I mean, don't force me on the top of that thing. Maybe I'll go back to the Sam Jackson thing. You know, I mean, during his speech at because somebody just rightly stated that the NPP In fact, there are internal fracas going on. A couple of weeks ago, was that James Barney? I think he's the chairman.
Yeah.
He's the chairman of NPP, and he was saying that the tenure of Jua, come again?
No.
The tenure of Jua Howard Taylor, was over because she had gone for 2, election cycles. So I think the party, their constitution, provides that you can't go for more than 2 terms. So, and President Weah, I think, led a delegation to the NPP headquarters to maybe mend fences to bring about healing. I don't know how that meeting went, but I see, in Sam Jackson's statement, he was, coming home and he was telling the people that he's written a book, Rich Land, Poor Country. So I don't know if that was a book tour or that was, a real political homecoming for him. So, that would be my little Tabata, That
I would say all of the above.
All of the above. So, we still get, I'm sure I will call him maybe tomorrow to ascertain, what he was really trying to do, in that.
All right. Thank you. Let me take one caller, and that will be our only caller for the night. Mr. Evans Morris, you are live. Go ahead, please. You have 1 minute. Go ahead, Evans. You are live.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. John. Thanks to the panel. I think maybe we kind of buried a lead into this show, or maybe you guys could play a show 1 week in advance so you can't really change it to the topic of the day. But my Tabata of the day, I was just starting up with my comments, would be why can't we talk about Joseph Boakai health? Why can't the nation speak about it openly when this is a public figure who is vying for the highest office in our land? The guy, the gentleman clearly has some health issues that we as a citizen should be concerned about. And I think now it's becoming even more clear that his running mate is going to be, monumentally important on who he picks. So this is something that I thought you guys should have probably discussed on the show today. Don't bury the lead, but that was something I was looking forward to, and you didn't touch on it, but I just want to make that comment. I think my Tabata is the fact that it's taboo for us to speak about health issues when it keeps rearing its ugly head over and over again. So I just want to make those few comments, and hopefully you guys can discuss it a little bit before, you guys leave on the show tonight, because I think it's an important issue. It's germane to our political discourse. So thank you again for the show, and thank you for taking my call.
And exactly what aspect of this hospitalization you want us to discuss?
Well, you have we ever had a political candidate or somebody who's vying for the presidency who has had an open health issue that is ongoing, like the vice president? He have a stent in his heart, or he has a pacemaker. He was rushed to the hospital with a suspected stroke, not his first stroke. This is big. It's not that it's anything different. It's not anything strange for somebody his age, but the reality is we should be talking about it, because if he becomes president, God forbid, he could pass at any time. So shouldn't the conversation be, at least maybe you can educate the people what the lines of succession is in case the president passed away. These are kind of some of the educational things we can discuss on the show, what the lines of succession is, and use it as a teaching opportunity on the platform. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Teddy Yanko, you have 39 seconds, please, quickly. We are out of time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jal, for taking my call. I would like to applaud, all those intellectuals, panelists, academicians, for the brilliant ideas you guys are trying to put together because of our Liberian society. We need people, to help to restructure some of these, important arrangement we have. But we are not, making more effort. But Mr. Dupo emphasizing on that. Well, I would like to say that one of the panelists said that, there is no structured political party in the country. But I would like to let you know that CDC is a structured political party that, that there for all the Liberians, with 15 sub-region, they only left for us to be honest, to uplift the CDC, because since the history of Liberia, Liberians of the 15 sub-region, we really embrace the CDC because we know how any organization or movement to really keep Liberians together, to put Liberians together, exception of the CDC. But don't put aside all the, political snake dance, politics people are playing now these days. But we should hold far with the CDC. Liberians, even those that are in the opposition, should see reason to see the CDC as the very first unified political party in the country, in Liberia. And Liberians should stick to that. That will help to unite Liberians in front. But I would like to talk a little thing about Joseph Waga.
Please, you have like 10 more seconds, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the old man is not, the old man is not that well. We hearing some speculation, but I'm one of those who 1 or 2 years back, and I even told you, Jah, in public radio, and I said that Omen Bwaga before the election, the Omen will not run because the Omen health is not looking.
Okay, let's leave it there. We can be discussing this whole health thing. We all have our health conditions.
I'm conditions, but really before God and man.
Right.
I respect the old man, and I'm kind of praying for him too.
Yeah. So I know that prayer is a two-way street to God. Teddy, let's leave it there. Leave the man health business alone.
But Dennis, if I could come in, latest news reports say that the former vice president, was on his way home, accompanied by his family. He had recuperated a bit, and he was leaving the hospital. So he even sent a congratulatory message to the football and the kickball teams from Lofa County on their victories. So I think he's recuperating.
Yeah, thank you. And when he went to the hospital, we focused on Liberia. We published that on our Facebook page that we got reports that he was in a hospital. I also got a call today. Oh, why you don't talking about Bwakai hair? You guys are biased. So we can't talk about all the issues in the country that can be mentioned, but for Tough Talking Thursday, it did not meet the threshold of being a topic here tonight. Let me get your response to the callers and also your closing, gentlemen. Let me start with Mr. Salif.
Thank you, Dennis. What the citizen callers are raising about the former vice president's health, presidential candidate, presumed presidential candidate's health. It's a legitimate, concern, because when you're a public official, you're under the scrutiny of the public. Although we cannot speculate, we don't have all the facts. We don't know what's happening with the vice president's health. But they have a point there. I mean, here in the U.S., President Biden right in the back, he fell, little thing happened, sprung the ankles, big headline, breaking news. Because people want to know, that's the leader, that's the national leader. You wish them well, but something happens, you want to know, the citizens want to know. So I wouldn't dismiss that point, although I'm not one who likes to speculate either, because if I don't have all the facts, I'm not going to sit on somebody's health until I have some facts. In terms of my closing, I wanted to come back to the point that I made about, so I'm very clear about that. I am not suggesting that Liberia has no institutions or political parties. We're saying we have weak institutions. We don't have institutionalism. Institutionalism is a different concept, different idea. You can, Dennis, Jah, and Dupo, and Hoga, and I can join today. We establish focus on Liberia, and what they call wishful thinking. I'm not a shareholder and focus on Liberia. We establish a company, an organization, but if we don't nurture it, we don't follow the principles and the practices that kind of organization, of that sector, of that industry. That's not institutionalism. So, and we come, at least I come here, try to advocate for these things, because I want to see Liberia. I'm sure all of us here want to see Liberia a better country, in a better place. We're in the 21st century. We cannot be advocating for things that happen in the 20th century, in the 21st, in the 19th century Liberia. No, I mean, other countries are moving ahead. People always say, don't compare Liberia to this country, to that country. My goodness, we were a country where people came from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Guinea, to go to medical school, to go to law school, to go to business school in Liberia, right? But where are we today? We're struggling with ourselves. So when I come here and try to call for attention to some of these lapses and how weak our system is, it's not to put country down, put our people down. This is to say we ought to be somewhere. And, you know, there are Liberians who have ideas to how to help get us to where we need to be. And that I think that's really the call that we're answering here to. And so I just wanted to lift that up. And finally, election year, all kinds of things happen in any country, in any context. I agree with my friend Kelebo. Across sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of the systems and the practices are very similar in these tribal societies. Is really personality-based, regional-based, tribal politics. You know, we can run away from that. That is our reality. That is our identity. However, with my point, I've been driving home within those realities, those African realities, authentic African realities, can be a better Liberia, a better Africa, and a better way to benefit and uplift our people.
Thank you. Mr. Duopu?
Thank you very much, Dennis. What a fascinating program. And I'm happy that I was, I had the opportunity to be on this panel with some great minds. Kelebo and I don't see eye to eye on many things, I must admit.
I don't know about
The two of you are from Soup.
I don't know about
that. That's why Soup was ideologically driven. It wasn't, unifocal. There were a lot of different, strand of Soup. So that was an institution. That is an institution. But coming back to the crux of what we discussed, coming back to the whole question of integrity institutions in Liberia, I think integrity institutions are the fulcrum of any democratic society. Because, in the polity, there will be, people who are interested in power, who are interested in wealth, prestige. Those are values they aspire to. Because like Eastman said, politics is the authoritative allocation of value. And value, whatever you believe in, whatever you aspire to get, that's your value. So these institutions, especially in Liberia, came about, after our war, and the actors in the war, the international community were trying to find a way where Liberia would get back on course. The institutions of government will, come to life for the benefit of the people. That's why we had the Governance Commission that gave birth to, all the other institutions, the civil society institutions. And Kelebo made a point about the decentralization program. I was part of that, the local government program headed by Dr. Dollier. I worked with Dr. Dollier, as a UN, contract, hybrid UN government Liberia, a consultant. And we developed all those policies, submitted to Madam Salif, and those things were shelved. Had those things had, taken, root in our democratic architecture, we would have had elections for superintendent, mayors. Right now, president appointing mayors and all that, local officials who should be accountable to the people. The whole mantra now is the person who appoints you, you owe your loyalty to that person. So we have mayors being appointed. That's a sad part of our democracy. And these institutions, I believe the integrity institutions should be apolitical. They should be devoid of conflict of interest that has saturated most of these so-called integrity institutions, because they are, the heads are not thoroughly vetted. They have political allegiances, political alliances with the political establishment of the day. So they should be apolitical, they should be independent and well-resourced. Calabo spoke about our whole governance architecture is based on the budget process. Everything is the Ministry of Finance. If you are in a good graces of the Ministry of Finance, your agency will be well-resourced. If you're not in a good graces, well, you're on your own. We'll come back tomorrow. Like the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission. We heard recently, months ago, that it was the commission itself did not even have a leadership structure. I think it was dismantled. The commission was watered down. We've heard that people were in the commission who were also double dealing with other institutions. Those investigations, we have not heard the findings. We've not heard anything for that matter. So I will leave for that. I will leave the integrity institution, and we talk about political parties. My parting comment will be, like I said, initially, political parties are the highest, collectivity of the people in a society. They have a duty to their members. How do they articulate their political ideology? Mr. Herbert talked about these institutions that are just in name. They all aspire just to become, cabinet minister or whatever position they can ascribe to themselves. So what is the ideology? What is political education for their members? Even the top political parties we have, we've never heard about any political training. The cadres that Mr. Salif talked about for other institutions, the South Africa and other political entities around Africa. How do you train your cadres in your political ideology? How do you measure your cadres? Because the primary goal of political parties is the acquisition of power, to get power. That's the primary focus of any political party. So if you get power down there, you even know how to manage the power. You don't have the wherewithal. You don't have the sophistication. So you become another political party. So you can't govern. So civil society organizations too, to just close, they have a very important part in the body politic. The civil society organizations play multiple roles. They are important sources of information for both citizens, government, private sector institutions. They are there to monitor government policies, government's actions, to hold government accountable, to engage in advocacy for the society, to offer alternative policy solutions, to help the private sector, because the private sector is also part of the politic, the body politic. But what we find in our civil society organizations, and Calabo could build me out on this, we've heard about institutions that do not even have the governance architecture internally. There are always squabbles. Somebody will just say, I'm head of this institution, FLA, or LINSU, or the human rights entities, and they'll be there for life. They don't even conform to their very constitution. So how will you want to hold government accountable if your very self is not being held to that high standard? So it undermines your own credibility.
Thank you.
So I would just end by saying that we have, challenges in every facet of the governance architecture in Liberia. 2023 will not solve our, challenges. We as a people collectively can, find that national vigor to pursue all our aspirations democratically, peacefully, and within the confines of the laws of Liberia. So I want to thank you very much for the time. and I look forward to more, discussions in the future. I want to thank our guest or co-host, Mr. Haga, who is my first meeting with him. I think he's a very knowledgeable man. Somebody who has a lot of experience, in journalism and politics. So it's a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Haga. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you. We want to announce that our fundraiser is ongoing. Our goal here is to raise $10,000 to expand our work in Liberia, especially as we approach 2023 elections. $10, $50, $20, anything that you can afford. Our cash app is 651-399-1614. Also, it's 651-392-6224. That's our Zelle and Cash App number. So please donate to us. This Friday at 6 p.m., we have the literary hour. The literary hour is with Professor K. Moses Nambwe and the scholar Jackie Sayer. This Friday at 6, education, why get it? You don't want to miss that. That's the literary hour is every Friday at 6. Then Friday night debate, we have our debaters on site. We will be talking about the guns found in Monrovia. We're going to debate it. VP choices, especially VP choices for Mr. Boakai that people are throwing out there. We'll also talk about former Minister McGill, his political career, what he's trying to do there. And it's been speculated about his role in the CDC government. So we're going to talk about that. Also, the CPP missing $70,000. There's still, as we say in Liberia, no head, no tail. So we want to talk about that. And Western Cluster. We are happy to have Mr. Salif, who is from the Western Cluster. So we're going to be discussing that. Maurice Kruman, independent. Jonathan Dulake, Cummings supporter. Glendy's independent. Ambula, a Gonglo supporter. Lara Mayonto, a Boakai supporter. And Jerome Gilman, we are supporter. All will be here. Moderators will be, I will be assisted by Mrs. Welly Wilson Momba. Also, our history channel continuing with President William D. Coleman tomorrow, or Saturday, January 14 at 7 p.m. Your presenter, Carl Famula, you don't want to miss it. Mr. Gonglo, let's get your closing comments.
Well, thank you, and what a great show. I will say this. I listened to Mesri and Ahmed. I have a few comments to make as my parting comment. First, let me say political parties are just the mass-based movement. In the mass-based movement, there are different tendencies. So that's why you always see conflict. Some join the movement for different objectives. And when they're there, they fight to make sure that their interest is served well. Either they get on top, and others are there for different reasons. It could be ideological, it could be long-term, it could be short-term. So there are always competing interests in mass-based movement, and just political parties are mass-based movement. People go there for different reasons. That said, I will come back to this same thing, but in a different context. That institutions do matter. In the case of Liberia, we overlook many things, and sometimes I think our leaders, I don't know whether it's a lack of foresight, or it's a lack of interest, or the office that they hold kind of becloud their judgment. Because my short experience in Liberian public service shows that even the smartest person who sat in class with you, once they become minister, they become very lazy. They want to do every work now through consulting. Something that they could sit behind a computer, something they could sit down and think through themselves and work on it, they will be requesting for consulting. And now, consultants bring their own worldview and go into whatever product they deliver to you. So if you look at the different reforms that took place under President Sali, most of it, those ones that were influenced by European consultants, had European view reflected in it. So you see that even the Ministry of Labor is an example. Liberia is the only country in West Africa with paternity leave. Probably, maybe even as radical as South African labor law is, I think South Africa probably has. It might be Liberia and South Africa that has such a law on the African continent. Now, when your wife delivers, you have the right also to take leave for baby care. Not even the United States labor law has gone down radically, but we have, because the guys who came as consultants were Europeans, and that's how most countries in Europe labor laws are. So institutions do matter. If we don't build institutions, we're going to fall for anything. Today in Liberia, let me just put this information out there. The new political bid, which is very sad, is they're adding more fire to the fire already to burn more. Our education system is done. It's really nothing. It's like President Salih said, it's a mess. Probably more than a mess, for lack of better description. Today, the government of Liberia is now distributing university status as a political ploy. They're giving one to Nimba. They're about in the process of giving one to Lofa. Aaron Snow, I heard Snow talking about bombing university. It's laughable. The University of Liberia is not even well resourced. They don't even have teaching material. I would put mathematics department because I taught there for years. So we don't even have anything there to work with. Up to 2019, I was teaching there. Yet you are trying to multiply state university.
Yeah.
What are our leaders thinking about? Why are they doing this to the country? So I sit here and say,
election year, but let's conclude.
Institutions do matter. Why are we doing this? Okay, and I will end on this note.
Please do.
When I work in government, one day I walked to the Ministry of Commerce. I went to the Research and Statistics department, and I spoke with one of the deputy ministers. Because Ministry of Commerce always issuing regulations, almost every 3 months they come with some regulation, importation, export, and what have you. And I was interested in whether they do evaluate the impact of the different measures they put to the public, whether they had data on those things. Like for example, if they increase tariff of something on whatever, some processing of
chicken feet,
people, it was going to be passed out to consumer. If they've been able to look at the old process or the data for that industry after they impose a new regulation, maybe 6 months down the line, to see how businesses are responding. Is it impacting their sale, their revenue, or while we're negatively, positively? They don't do that. But they just pass policy, regulation every. So leaders, when you do that, it's because there is no institution. Because
Thank you.
Institution, there will be mechanism to measure actions, policy interventions, so that you go back and evaluate if that was a good policy. We don't do that in Liberia. So it's like we're just swimming anywhere to no man's land. And this country has actually been on autopilot for years, for centuries, really. Now we are, Liberia is actually on autopilot because we don't invest in data, we don't invest in research, we don't invest in education, we don't invest in anything. We just invest in politics. So that's why our politics is the way it is, because it's free for all.
Thank you. Mr. Hoga, let's conclude.
Thank you, Dennis. My brother Wallow on the text message.
Let's conclude.
Yeah. Let me tell you, brother Wallow, to vote or not to vote is my right. An inalienable right to vote or not to vote. But then you say the majority of Liberians vote for the wrong politicians. But anyway, let's leave that. But I'd like to thank you, Dennis, for the invite, and I hope to be here next Thursday. Thanks to you, Mr. Sirleaf, Ransfi Duoku. I don't know if you have any relationship to the late G. Moses. I knew him growing up. Kelebo, nice to meet you on this program.
Me too. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Dennis, I hope to be with you again next Thursday, and
Let's do it.
I hope to make myself more available to focus on Liberia. I know one person sitting there has been initiating this appearance, but I'm happy, and because this is my area, because I worked. If you heard of the radio station, Radio Veritas, the Catholic-run radio station, I worked there for about 15 years. Then I went to the state broadcaster, ELWC. I worked there 5 years before I came on this side. So this is my first time on this online stuff, but I like it, and I hope it gets better as we meet more intellectuals, and then we can be able to expand and expound on issues. But we're looking forward to the elections coming up, and I hope we're talking about political parties. I hope they can structure themselves. And I said from the beginning, politicians in Liberia are highly deceptive and dangerous. So we have to be careful with them. People have to be very careful with the politicians. You see them, they smile with each other, and they're fighting each other, they're backstabbing each other. I mean, they just don't know what they want. So we really need to do something about. So somebody was asking, should the president not appoint the chief justice too? As far as I'm concerned, like we were talking, we have civil society organizations, the CSO, we have the Liberian Bar Association. The president should be consulting those people, and they come up with names that they can vet, and then it's okay, this person. But anyway, that's the situation we have now. That's what our constitution calls for. Maybe in time to come in the future, there might be a referendum or whatever, and people might try to, say that no, the president shouldn't be appointing election commission officials or the chief justice or appointing superintendents that Mr. Dupu was alluding to, appointing superintendents and city mayors who they owe their allegiance to. So, but it's high time that we perhaps in the future we can come and see that, and we can change. But I'd like to thank you, Dennis and Anthony. Thank you guys for your platform. Wonderful to be here, and I wish all of you a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Oga, for joining us, and thank you gentlemen for coming. Appreciate it. Want to also thank our viewers and even those who will watch later. Always focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. On that note, we end with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.